Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the strange message arrived. He sat in the command chair of the Aurora's edge, watching the stars through the big window at the front of the ship. The coffee was still hot, and Jake was enjoying the quiet moment before his crew woke up. The communication system made a soft beeping sound. Amy Chen, who was working the night shift, looked up from her station with surprise on her face. "Captain, we're getting a message," Amy said. "But it's not from Earth. It's not from anywhere we know." Jake put down his coffee cup and walked over to Amy's station. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and quick fingers that moved across the control panel like a piano player. "What kind of message?" Jake asked. "It's in perfect English," Amy said, frowning. "But the signal is coming from somewhere really far away, farther than any human ship has ever gone." Jake felt a small chill run down his back. The Aurora's Edge was a science ship. They were supposed to be alone out here, studying new planets and looking for signs of life. Finding life was the dream. Getting a message from that life was something else entirely. "Put it on the main screen," Jake said. The message appeared in bright blue letters against the black of space. Jake read it twice before he believed what he was seeing. "Greetings, representatives of species designation Human Terra Sol 3. You have been selected to participate in the Galactic Survival Institute's Basic Safety Certification Program. This is a standard requirement for all new species joining Galactic civilization. Please respond if you wish to accept this invitation to ensure peaceful integration into galactic society." Amy stared at the screen. "Captain, are you seeing this?" "I'm seeing it," Jake said. "I'm just not sure I'm believing it." The rest of the crew was waking up now. Dr. Lisa Park came onto the bridge first. She was a scientist who studied alien life, though until today, alien life had been just a theory. Lisa was tall and thin, with long brown hair that she always kept tied back when she worked. "What's all the excitement about?" Lisa asked. Then she saw the message on the screen. Her mouth fell open. Rick Santos came next. He was the ship's engineer, a big man with dark skin and hands that could fix anything. Rick took one look at the message and whistled low. "Well, that's not something you see every day," Rick said. Troy Bennett arrived last. He was the security chief, a serious man who used to be a soldier. Troy read the message carefully, then looked at Jake. "Captain, what do you think?" Troy asked. Jake rubbed his chin. He had been in charge of the Aurora's Edge for 3 years. In that time, they had found 12 new planets, 6 new types of space rocks, and 1 very interesting kind of space plant. But they had never found anything that could send messages in English. "Amy, can you trace where this came from?" Jake asked. Amy worked at her station for a few minutes. "It's coming from a big space station about 2 days away from here." "The station is huge, Captain. Much bigger than anything humans have ever built." Dr. Kate Williams, the ship's doctor, came onto the bridge carrying a cup of tea. Kate was older than the others, maybe 40, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many emergencies. "Good morning, everyone," Kate said. "Why does everyone look like they've seen a ghost?" Lisa pointed at the screen. Kate read the message, blinked, and sat down in the nearest chair. "Oh my," Kate said quietly. Jake looked at his crew. These were good people, smart people, people he trusted with his life every day. But this was bigger than anything they had trained for. "What do you all think?" Jake asked. "It could be a trap," Troy said. "Someone pretending to be aliens." "But who would do that?" Amy asked. "And how would they build a space station that big?" It could be real aliens, Lisa said. Her voice was excited. This is what we've been looking for. This is the greatest discovery in human history. Rick nodded. The message seems friendly. They're talking about safety training and peaceful integration. That sounds good to me. Kate sipped her tea. If they wanted to hurt us, they probably wouldn't ask nicely first. They seem to have much better technology than we do. Jake thought about it. They were explorers. This was what they had come out here to do. Find new things. Meet new people. Even if those people happened to be aliens. Amy, send a reply, Jake said. Tell them we accept their invitation. Amy's fingers moved across the controls. A few seconds. Later, she looked up. Message sent, Captain. The reply came back almost immediately. New words appeared on the screen. Excellent. Please proceed to Survival Station Omega-7. Coordinates attached. We look forward to meeting you. Please note, this is a basic safety drill only. No special preparation required. Standard duration, 72 hours. Instructor, Zeltar of the Zenthari. Safe travels. A safety drill, Rick said, laughing. That doesn't sound too scary. 72 hours, Lisa said. That's just 3 days. We can handle 3 days of safety training. Jake felt some of his worry go away. A safety drill sounded reasonable. If aliens had been traveling through space for a long time, they probably had good safety rules. It made sense that new species would need to learn those rules. Amy, set course for those coordinates, Jake said. Course set, Captain, Amy said. Rick, make sure all our systems are working perfectly. I want to make a good first impression. You got it, Captain, Rick said. Lisa, start thinking about what questions you want to ask. This is the chance of a lifetime for a xenobiologist. Lisa grinned. I've been making a list since I was 12 years old. Troy, standard security measures. We're probably safe, but let's be smart about this. Troy nodded. Already on it, Captain. Kate, make sure our medical supplies are ready. We don't know what kind of safety training this will be. Kate smiled. I'll pack some extra bandages. Jake sat back down in his command chair and picked up his coffee. It was cold now, but he drank it anyway. In 2 days, they would meet aliens. Real aliens. And all they had to do was pass a simple safety test. He looked out at the stars and wondered what the aliens would look like. He wondered what their technology would be like. He wondered what they would think of humans. Most of all, he wondered why a simple safety drill needed to be held at something called Survival Station Omega-7. That name sounded a little more serious than a basic safety class, but the message had been clear. Basic safety certification, standard requirement, peaceful integration, 3 days. How hard could it be? 2 days later, the Aurora's Edge arrived at Survival Station Omega-7. Jake had seen big space stations before, but nothing like this. The station was the size of a small city, with spinning sections and glowing lights that pulsed in patterns. He didn't understand. Amy, are you getting any more information about this place? Jake asked. Amy was busy at her communication station. They're sending us docking instructions, Captain. Base 7. They're very polite. They keep saying, welcome to basic training and please don't worry. That's nice of them, Rick said. He was looking at his engineering displays. Their technology is incredible. The power readings from that station are off the charts. Dr. Lisa Park was pressed against the window, trying to see everything. Look at those other ships, she said. Some of them don't look anything like human designs. Jake looked where Lisa was pointing. She was right. There were ships docked at the station that looked like giant insects. Others looked like flowing water frozen in space. One ship seemed to be made entirely of crystal. I guess we're not the only new students, Jake said. Troy Bennett was checking his security equipment. Captain, I'm reading at least 12 different ship designs. That means 12 different species. 12 species, Kate Williams said softly. This is really happening. The Aurora's Edge docked smoothly. Jake had to admit that whoever was running this station knew what they were doing. The docking process was smoother than most human stations could manage. Everyone ready? Jake asked. His crew nodded. They had all put on their best uniforms. Lisa had brought 3 different recording devices. Amy had a translation computer, though the aliens seemed to speak perfect English. Rick had a basic toolkit, because Rick always had a toolkit. Troy was wearing his sidearm, which Jake had decided was probably a good idea. Kate had a medical scanner and a first aid kit. They walked through the airlock and into the station. The first thing Jake noticed was the air. It smelled clean and fresh, like a forest after rain. The second thing he noticed was the gravity. It felt exactly like Earth gravity. The third thing he noticed was the alien standing in front of them. The alien was tall, maybe 7 feet, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Its head was larger than a human head, with big compound eyes like an insect. It wore a uniform that looked official and important. "Welcome," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Instructor Zeltar of the Zenthari. You must be the humans." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. This is my crew. We're honored to meet you." Zeltar moved its head in what might have been a nod. "The honor is ours. Please, follow me. I will take you to meet your fellow trainees." They walked through corridors that were clearly designed for many different types of beings. Some sections had lower gravity, others had different atmospheric controls. Jake saw air that glowed softly, and water-filled tubes for beings that needed to swim. "Instructor Zeltar," Lisa said, "may I ask how many species are participating in this training?" 13, including yourselves, Zeltar replied. "This is a large group. Usually we have only 6 or 7 species per session." "Is that good or bad?" Amy asked. Zeltar paused before answering. "It is interesting." They arrived at a large room filled with the strangest gathering Jake had ever seen. There were tall beings that looked like walking trees, small beings covered in fur, beings that seemed to be made of living rock, beings that floated in small clouds of mist, and all of them looked serious. Very serious. Jake saw insect-like creatures wearing heavy armor and carrying weapons. He saw creatures that looked like they were made of water, but they had brought massive life support systems. The crystal beings had modified their bodies with extra spikes and defensive plates. "Everyone seems very well prepared," Rick observed, quietly. A large insect creature approached them. It had 6 legs, sharp claws, and mandibles that clicked when it talked. "You are the humans?" it asked. Its voice was translated by a small device attached to its armor. "Yes," Jake said. "I'm Captain Morrison." The insect creature looked them up and down. "I am War Leader Cathresh of the Krillian Empire. You seem under-equipped for the trials ahead." "Under-equipped?" Troy asked. "What kind of equipment do we need for a safety drill?" Cathresh made a sound that might have been laughter. "Safety drill? Is that what they told you?" Before Jake could answer, Zeltar called for attention. "Trainees, please gather around. We will begin the orientation." Everyone moved toward Zeltar. Jake noticed that the other species stayed in tight groups, like military units preparing for battle. The humans stood together, but they looked relaxed compared to everyone else. "Welcome to the Galactic Survival Institute," Zeltar began. "You are here to complete the basic safety certification required for all new species joining galactic civilization." Zeltar paused and looked around the room. "This certification will test your ability to survive environmental hazards, resource scarcity, and unexpected threats. The exercises are designed to simulate conditions you might encounter during space travel or on hostile worlds." Jake felt a small worry start in his stomach. This was starting to sound more serious than a simple safety class. "The training consists of 3 phases," Zeltar continued. "Each phase will eliminate participants who cannot meet the safety standards required for galactic citizenship." "Eliminate?" Amy whispered. Kathresh leaned over to the humans. "The average survival rate is 23%, he said quietly. Kate blinked. 23%? "You didn't know?" asked a flowing water creature. "This is the most difficult training in the galaxy. Most species prepare for years before attempting it." Lisa looked confused. "But they told us it was just a basic safety drill." The crystal beings made a sound like wind chimes. "Basic safety? This training is based on survival conditions found on Class 8 Deathworlds. Nothing about this is basic." Rick scratched his head. "What's a Class 8 Deathworld?" "A planet so dangerous that only the most elite warriors can survive there," Kathresh explained. "Worlds with extreme weather, deadly predators, toxic environments, and constant natural disasters." The humans looked at each other. This was not what they had expected. Zeltar was still talking. "The first phase will begin tomorrow. You will be transported to a world with unstable atmospheric conditions and moderate predator activity. You will have basic supplies and must survive for 72 hours. "Moderate predator activity?" Troy asked. "Creatures that can kill you in several different ways," Kathresh said helpfully. "The second phase involves resource management on a barren moon. You will have limited supplies and must find water, food, and shelter while dealing with environmental hazards." "What kind of environmental hazards?" Rick asked. "Radiation storms, temperature extremes, and equipment failures," Zeltar replied. "The third phase is a team exercise in a hostile facility. You must work together to escape while dealing with multiple threats." Jake raised his hand. "Instructor Zeltar, I think there might be some confusion. We were told this was a basic safety drill." Zeltar's compound eyes seemed to focus on Jake. "Yes, that is what we told you. Initial scans of your homeworld suggested that humans might not survive our standard training procedures. We thought it would be kinder to present this as a simple drill to prevent panic." "Scans of Earth?" Lisa asked. "Your world was classified as a Category 2 garden world. Pleasant climate, low gravity, minimal dangers. We assumed you would be gentle beings who needed special consideration." The other species were staring at the humans now. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked like they were already planning funeral arrangements. "So," Jake said slowly, "you're saying we're about to undergo the galaxy's most dangerous survival training, and you told us it was just a safety class so we wouldn't be scared?" "Correct," Zeltar said. "We apologize for the deception, but we thought it was for the best." Jake looked at his crew. Amy looked worried. Lisa looked fascinated. Rick looked thoughtful. Troy looked like he was calculating tactical options. Kate looked like she was already planning how to treat injuries. "Well," Jake said finally, "we're here now. We might as well see what happens." Kathresh clicked his mandibles approvingly. "Spoken, like true warriors. You may survive longer than expected." How long do most participants survive? Amy asked. The record for a Category 2 Garden World species is 4 hours, Zeltar said. 4 hours, Rick repeated. Yes. Though, to be fair, they were eliminated during the safety briefing when they saw the equipment list. Jake took a deep breath. They were humans from Earth. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. They had climbed the highest mountains and explored the deepest oceans. How dangerous could alien survival training really be? Looking around at the heavily armed and armored beings surrounding them, Jake was starting to think he might find out very soon. The next morning, Jake woke up to the sound of aliens screaming. He jumped out of his bunk and ran to the common area where the trainees had been staying. Several species were gathered around their equipment, making sounds of distress. The crystal. Beings were flashing angry red colors. Kathresh and his Krillian warriors were clicking their mandibles rapidly. What's wrong? Jake asked Amy, who was watching the chaos with fascination. They're panicking about the equipment list for today's exercise, Amy said. Apparently, we're only allowed to bring basic survival gear. Jake looked at the list on the wall display. It seemed reasonable to him. Water purification tablets, basic tools, emergency shelter, first aid supplies, and standard rations. That doesn't seem too bad, Rick said, reading over Jake's shoulder. A tall, tree-like being turned toward them. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through leaves. Basic survival gear? We are going to a Class 8 death world with basic C. Survival gear? I thought this was just training, Lisa said. The environmental conditions are real, Zeltar explained, appearing beside them. We use actual hostile worlds for training because simulations cannot properly prepare you for the psychological stress of mortal danger. Mortal danger? Kate asked. Of course. How else would we test your survival capabilities? The humans looked at each other. This was definitely not what they had signed up for. An hour later, they were standing in the transport bay. Jake had to admit that the other species looked impressive. The Krillians wore armor that could stop bullets. The water beings had environmental suits that looked like they could survive in space. The crystal beings had grown extra defensive spikes. The humans wore their standard exploration gear, sturdy clothes, good boots, and light packs. They looked like they were going on a camping trip. Humans, Kathresh said, approaching them. Where is your protective gear? This is our protective gear, Troy said, patting his jacket. Kathresh stared at them. You are going to face toxic gases, electrical storms, temperature extremes, and predatory wildlife in fabric clothing? We've been in worse weather on Earth, Rick said. This sounds like Tuesday in Montana. The transport ship was large enough to hold all 13 species, but just barely. Jake found himself sitting next to a being that looked like it was made of blue fog. The being introduced itself as Drift of the Cloudkin. I am sorry you will not survive the first day, Drift said sadly. You seem like pleasant creatures. Thanks, Jake said, but we're tougher than we look. Drift made a sound like wind sighing. That is what the last Category 2 species said. They lasted 6 hours. The transport dropped them on a world that looked like Earth during a particularly bad storm. The sky was dark with clouds that flashed with lightning. The ground was rocky and covered with strange plants that moved without any wind. Welcome to Survival World Kappa 9, Zeltar announced over the communication system. You have 72 hours to establish shelter, find food and water, and survive the environmental hazards. Good luck. The transport flew away, leaving 13 groups of beings on a hostile alien world. Immediately, the other species began implementing what looked like military deployment procedures. The Krillians formed defensive positions. The cloudkin spread out to scout the area. The crystal beings began building fortified shelters. The humans stood in a loose circle and looked around. "Well," Jake said, "this looks like camping weather." "Bit windy," Troy observed as a gust of alien wind tried to knock them over. "The lightning is pretty," Amy said, watching electrical bolts dance between the clouds. Lisa was already kneeling next to the moving plants. "Fascinating. These appear to be modal flora with rapid response systems." "English, Lisa," Rick said. "Plants that can move fast, probably for defense or hunting." Kate was checking her medical kit. "The atmospheric readings show some toxic compounds, but nothing our filters can't handle." Jake nodded. "Rick, can you find us a good spot for shelter? Somewhere with natural windbreak and good drainage." "Already spotted one," Rick said, pointing to a cluster of large rocks about 100 meters away. "Good elevation, protected from the wind, and those rocks will absorb heat during the day and release it at night." They walked toward the rocks, passing several alien groups that were struggling with the conditions. A group of small, furry beings had already lost half their equipment to the wind. The tree beings were having trouble moving in the rocky terrain. "Hey," Troy called out to the furry beings. "You need help with your gear?" The aliens looked at him with surprise. "You would help us? We are competitors." "We're all stuck on the same planet," Troy said. "Might as well be neighborly." Rick helped them secure their equipment while Amy showed them how to use the rock formations for wind protection. The furry beings, who called themselves the Fluffkin, were amazed that the humans would share survival techniques. "This is not normal behavior for survival training," one of them said. "Really?" Jake asked. "What do most species do?" "Try to eliminate the competition as quickly as possible." The humans found their shelter spot and began setting up camp. It was good terrain, and Rick had chosen well. Within an hour, they had a comfortable base established. Then the first storm hit. Lightning filled the sky like an angry light show. Rain fell sideways, driven by winds that would have knocked over buildings on most worlds. The temperature dropped 30 degrees in 10 minutes. The humans watched from their shelter as alien groups across the area called for emergency evacuation. Zeltar's voice came over the communication system, announcing that 3 species had already been eliminated. "Eliminated?" Amy asked. "Probably means they quit," Jake said. "Or died," Troy added helpfully. "The storm raged for 6 hours. When it finally passed, the humans emerged to find a very different landscape. The moving plants had dug themselves deep into the ground. Several of the alien shelters had been completely destroyed." "Well, that was refreshing," Rick said, stretching in the sudden sunshine. Lisa was immediately back to studying the plants which were emerging from their hiding spots. "Look at this adaptation. They're not just motile, they're predictive. They can sense incoming weather changes." "Can we eat them?" Amy asked practically. Lisa pulled out her scanner. "Unknown. But these purple fruits on the non-moving plants appear to be safe and nutritious." Kate ran a quick analysis. "Safe for human consumption, high in protein and vitamins." Jake looked around at the devastation from the storm. Several alien groups were in serious trouble. The crystal beings had lost 2 members when their shelter collapsed. The cloudkin were scattered by the wind and trying to regroup. "Should we help them?" Amy asked. "We're supposed to be competitors," Troy pointed out. "We're also supposed to be civilized beings joining galactic society," Jake said. "Let's go help." They spent the next several hours helping other species rebuild their shelters and find food. Rick taught the crystal beings how to build flexible shelters that could bend with the wind instead of breaking. Lisa shared her plant research with everyone, Kate treated injuries and provided medical advice. The other species were amazed. This was not how survival training was supposed to work. "Why are you helping us?" Kathresh asked, as Rick showed him how to waterproof his equipment. "Because that's what humans do," Rick said. "We help each other. But we are from different species, different worlds. So, you're still people stuck in a storm." By the end of the first day, something unprecedented was happening. Instead of 13 competing groups, there was one large camp with the humans at the center, teaching survival techniques to anyone who would listen. Zeltar's voice came over the communication system that evening, sounding confused. "All remaining participants, please report your status." 11 species reported in. 2 had been evacuated during the storm. But instead of the expected desperation and resource hoarding, Zeltar heard reports of shared food, communal shelters, and cooperative weather watching. "This is highly unusual," Zeltar transmitted to the monitoring station. On the monitoring station, other instructors were watching the display screens with confusion. Species that had been enemies for generations were sharing campfires. Beings that normally ate each other were trading food recipes. And at the center of it all were 6 humans who seemed to think they were on a pleasant camping trip. "Run a diagnostic on the planetary conditions," one instructor said. "Something must be wrong with our equipment. Environmental conditions are at maximum allowable levels for Class 8 Deathworld training," came the reply. "Then why do the humans keep saying nice weather for camping?" On the surface, Jake was enjoying the evening. The storm had passed, the stars were coming out, and Amy had figured out how to use the local plants to make a decent soup. Several alien species were gathered around their fire, sharing stories and survival tips. "You know," Jake said to Kathresh, "this isn't so bad. Reminds me of scout camp when I was a kid." Kathresh clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "Your species trains children in Class 8 Deathworld survival?" "Well, we call it camping, but sure." Kathresh was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm beginning to think there has been a mistake in your planetary classification." Jake looked up at the alien stars and wondered what Kathresh meant. This seemed like a perfectly normal outdoor adventure to him. Above them, on the monitoring station, Instructor Zeltar was having the same thought. The second phase began 3 days later on a moon that looked like a giant rock covered in dust. The landscape was empty, except for scattered pieces of broken machinery and a few sad-looking plants that seemed to be dying. "Welcome to Resource Management Training," Zeltar announced as the transport ships dropped off the remaining participants. "You have been scattered across this moon in separate locations. You must find water, food, and shelter while surviving the environmental hazards. You have 72 hours. Jake looked around at his landing site. It was just him, Amy, Lisa, Rick, Troy, and Kate in a circle of dusty rocks under a pale sun. The other species had been dropped at different locations across the moon. "Well, this looks cheerful," Rick said, kicking at the dry dirt. "At least it's not raining," Troy said. Amy was already working with her communication equipment. "I'm picking up signals from the other groups. They're scattered pretty far apart." Lisa was examining the dying plants. "These aren't actually dying. They're dormant, probably waiting for water." Kate was checking the atmospheric readings. "Air is breathable but dry, very dry. We're going to need water soon." Jake nodded. "Rick, what do you think about shelter?" Rick was looking at the broken machinery scattered around the area. "These machines look like water processing units." Old ones, probably broken for years. Can you fix them? Jake asked. Rick grinned. I can fix anything. While Rick examined the broken machines, the others explored the area. Lisa found more dormant plants and started mapping their locations. Amy established communication with the other species groups. Troy found a good defensive position on high ground. Kate located a cave that would provide shelter. Captain, Amy called out, I'm getting some interesting radio chatter from the other groups. What kind of chatter? Panic, mostly. The Krillians are already rationing their water down to drops per hour. The Cloudkin are talking about emergency evacuation procedures. The crystal beings are trying to dig for underground water sources. Any luck with the water sources? They found some, but it's contaminated with heavy metals, toxic to most carbon-based life forms. Jake frowned. This was supposed to be a survival exercise, but it sounded like the other species were in real trouble. Rick's voice called from the machinery area. Hey, Captain, come look at this. Jake walked over to where Rick was kneeling next to what looked like a big metal box with pipes coming out of it. This is an atmospheric water generator, Rick explained. It pulls moisture out of the air and purifies it. Really clever design. But it's broken? Yeah, but not badly. Just needs new power cells, some rewiring, and a couple of replacement parts. Do we have replacement parts? Rick pointed to the other broken machines scattered around the area. We have a whole spare parts warehouse. These machines are all the same basic design. I can cannibalize parts from the broken ones to fix this one. How long will it take? Give me 6 hours. Jake nodded. Do it. The rest of us will secure the area and see what else we can find. While Rick worked on the water generator, Lisa made an interesting discovery. The dormant plants weren't just waiting for water. They were actually part of a complex ecosystem that had been disrupted when the water machines broke. Look at this, Lisa said, showing Jake a handful of seeds she had found. These plants are designed to work with the water processing systems. When the machines were working, they would provide water for the plants. The plants would clean the air and provide food. Food? These seeds are highly nutritious, perfect survival food. And when the plants are active, they produce fruits that are even better. Kate ran her medical scanner over the seeds. Safe for human consumption. High protein, good vitamin content. So if we fix the water machines, we fix the whole ecosystem? Exactly. Amy's voice came from the communication station. Captain, I'm getting emergency calls from 3 different species. Groups. They're requesting immediate evacuation. What's wrong? Dehydration mostly. The Fluffkin are down to their last few drops of water. The tree beings need much more water than they brought. The crystal beings found water, but it's poisoning them. Jake thought about this. The training was supposed to teach survival skills and cooperation. But the other species were failing not because they weren't smart or capable, but because they were following the wrong strategy. Amy, can you establish communication with all the groups at once? Sure. But why? Because I think we need to share some information. A few minutes later, Amy had all the surviving species groups on a conference call. The voices that came through the communication system sounded desperate. This is War Leader Cathresh of the Krillians. We are down to emergency water reserves. Drift of the Cloudkin here. Our water recycling systems are failing. Crystal Formation Prime speaking. We have found water sources, but they are toxic to our mineral-based biology. Jake took the communication device from Amy. This is Captain Morrison, of the humans. We think we might have a solution. There was silence on the channel for a moment. Then Cathresh's voice came through. Humans? You are still active? How is that possible? We found some broken water processing machines at our site. Our engineer thinks he can fix them. Water processing. Machines? This was a new voice. One of the tree beings. We have similar machines at our location, but they do not function. Ours don't function either, Rick called out, not looking up from his work. But the problems are pretty simple. Bad power cells, corroded connections, clogged filters. Basic maintenance stuff. You can repair alien technology? Asked Drift. Technology is technology, Rick said. The physics are the same everywhere. These machines are just pumps, filters, and power sources. I've been fixing pumps since I was 12. Jake had an idea. Amy, can you coordinate locations? I want to know where every broken machine is on this moon. Amy worked with her scanner for several minutes. Got them, Captain. There are water processing stations scattered all over the moon. Looks like this place used to be some kind of agricultural colony. Lisa, what's your analysis of the plant ecosystem? If the water machines were working, this moon could support a large population. The plants are designed to work with the machines. It's an integrated system. Jake made his decision. Rick, how long to fix all the machines on the moon? Rick looked up from his work. All of them? If I had help, maybe 2 days. Why? Because I think this exercise isn't just about individual survival. I think it's about restoring a failed colony. Kate nodded. That makes sense. Real survival situations often involve fixing existing infrastructure, not just living off the land. Jake took the communication device again. All groups, this is Captain Morrison. We propose a joint operation. We'll share our knowledge of how to repair the water systems if you'll share your resources and manpower. There was another silence. Then Kathresh spoke. You would share survival information with competitors? We're not competitors, Jake said. We're all intelligent beings trying to solve the same problem. Why wouldn't we work together? Because this is a survival test, said Crystal Formation Prime. Only the strongest are meant to survive. Says who? Troy asked, taking the communication device. The instructor said this was about learning survival skills. Working together is a survival skill. Rick had gotten the first water generator working. Clean, fresh water began flowing from the output pipe. Immediately, the dormant plants around the machine began to stir and grow. It's working! Lisa said excitedly. The plants are responding to the water. Look, they're already starting to flower. Amy was monitoring the communications. Captain, the other groups are discussing our proposal. It sounds like most of them want to work together. Most of them? The crystal beings are worried about sharing technology. They think it might be against the rules. Jake thought about this. The rules hadn't said anything about working together or sharing information. In fact, real survival situations almost always involved cooperation. Amy, open the channel to all groups. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Morrison to all groups. We're going to start repairing water systems and sharing survival information. Any group that wants to participate is welcome. Any group that doesn't want to participate is also welcome. We'll still share our water and food with you if you need it. Why would you share resources with groups that don't help? Asked Drift Jake. Looked at his crew. They all nodded. Because that's what people do, Jake said. We help each other. Over the next day and a half, something amazing happened. Rick led teams of mixed species around the moon, teaching them how to repair the water processing systems. Lisa shared her knowledge of the plant ecosystem, showing other species how to cultivate food crops. Amy coordinated communication and resource sharing between all the groups. The crystal beings, who had been reluctant to participate, changed their minds when they discovered that Rick could modify the water systems to produce the mineral rich. water they needed for their biology. Cathresh and his Krillian warriors became enthusiastic students of human engineering techniques. The tree beings shared their knowledge of plant biology with Lisa. The Cloudkin used their ability to move through small spaces to help with repairs in tight locations. By the end of the exercise, the moon had been transformed. Water flowed from dozens of processing stations. Plants grew in organized gardens around each station. Food was plentiful. All species groups had. The third phase took place in what Zeltar called a malfunctioning research facility. Jake thought it looked more like an underground maze designed by someone who didn't like visitors very much. All the surviving species were together now. 8 different groups that had made it through the first 2 phases. The humans, Krillians, Cloudkin, crystal beings, tree beings, fluffkin, and 2 other species that Jake hadn't talked to much yet. "Welcome to the final phase of your training," Zeltar announced over the intercom system. "You are in a research facility that has suffered multiple system failures. Life support is failing, the structure is unstable, and the automated security systems have malfunctioned. You must work together to escape within 24 hours. Jake looked around the entry chamber. It was a metal room with several corridors leading off in different directions. Red warning lights flashed on the walls, and there was a constant, humming sound that suggested machinery working too hard. "Working together shouldn't be a problem," Amy said. "We've been doing that for the last 2 phases. "Actually," Cathresh said, "this is the first time all groups have been required to cooperate. Previous participants often eliminated each other during this phase." "Eliminated each other?" Kate asked. "The facility is designed to support only a few survivors," explained Crystal Formation Prime. "Resources are limited. Traditionally, species compete for access to the escape routes." Troy frowned. "That seems counterproductive. More people means more skills and more hands to solve problems. More people also means more mouths to feed and more bodies to fit through narrow escape passages," said one of the tree beings. Jake looked at his crew. They had the same expression he was feeling. This was another problem that could be solved with cooperation instead of competition. "Right," Jake said. "Let's figure out what we're dealing with. Amy, can you access the facility's computer systems?" Amy pulled out her portable computer and connected it to a wall panel. "I'm in. This place is a mess. Life support failing in multiple sections, structural damage on levels 3 through 7, and the security robots are hunting anything that moves." "Security robots?" Lisa asked. "Automated defense systems. They're supposed to protect the facility, but their programming has been corrupted. Now they think everyone is an intruder." Rick was examining the walls and ceiling. "This place is built solid. Military-grade construction. Whatever they were researching here, they wanted it secure." "I'm reading massive power fluctuations," Amy continued. "The main reactor is overloading. If it goes critical, it'll take the whole facility with it." The other species were looking nervous. Several of them were already discussing which corridors might lead to quick escape routes. "Hold on," Jake said. "Before anyone goes running off, let's think about this logically. Amy, how big is this facility?" 15 levels, covering about 10 square kilometers. It's huge. And we have 24 hours to get everyone out safely? "That's the goal." Jake nodded. "Then we need to be smart about this. Lisa, what's your assessment of our people resources?" Lisa looked around the group. "We have 8 different species with different abilities. The Cloudkin can move through ventilation systems. The crystal beings are resistant to radiation and electrical damage. The tree beings are strong and can communicate through biological networks. The Krillians are tactical experts. The Fluffkin have excellent hearing and can detect structural weaknesses, added one of the small furry beings. What about the security robots? Troy asked. Are they actually dangerous? Amy checked her readings. Armed with energy weapons and designed for military-level threats, but their AI is corrupted. They might be negotiable. Negotiable? Kathresh asked. You want to negotiate with malfunctioning war machines? Why not? Troy said. If their programming is corrupted, maybe we can fix it. Rick was studying Amy's technical readouts. The power problems are causing cascading system failures. If we could stabilize the reactor, it might fix a lot of other problems too, including the robot programming, Jake asked. Possibly. Looks like the AI corruption is related to power fluctuations affecting their memory cores. Jake made his decision. We split into teams. Each team has a specific mission, but we all work toward the same goal, getting everyone out safely. What teams? Asked Drift. Amy and Crystal Formation Prime work on accessing the central computer and mapping the facility. Lisa and the tree beings investigate the research areas to understand what we're dealing with. Rick and Kathresh go to the reactor to stabilize the power systems. Troy and me will handle the security robots. What about us? Asked the Fluffkin. You and the Cloudkin are our communication network. You can move through small spaces and keep all teams in contact. The other species looked at each other uncertainly. This level of organization and cooperation was not what they had expected. You want to fix the facility instead of just escaping? Asked one of the crystal beings. Why not do both? Jake said. If we fix the problems, escaping becomes easier. The teams spread out through the facility. Jake and Troy headed toward the security control center, following Amy's directions through their communication devices. The first robot they encountered was a sleek metal humanoid with glowing red eyes and weapons built into its arms. It spotted them immediately and raised its weapons. "Halt, intruders!" the robot announced in a mechanical voice. "You are trespassing in a restricted facility." "We're not intruders," Troy called out. "We're here to help." The robot paused, its head tilting slightly. "Help? Error. No help requested. Eliminate intruders." Jake stepped forward slowly, hands visible. "Your facility is damaged. We're repair technicians." Another pause. "Repair. Technicians. Scanning." The robot's eyes changed from red to blue for a moment. "Warning. Facility systems operating at 23% efficiency. Multiple critical failures detected." "That's right," Jake said. "We're here to fix those failures." The robot's programming seemed to be struggling with this information. Orders unclear. Facility security compromised. Repair personnel not authorized. Troy had an idea. "Computer, this is Emergency Protocol 7. Temporary authorization for repair personnel during critical system failure." Jake looked at Troy with surprise. Troy shrugged. "I've seen a lot of computer systems. They all have emergency protocols." The robot's eyes flickered between red and blue several times. "Emergency Protocol 7 acknowledged. Temporary authorization granted. What repairs are required?" "We need access to the security control center," Jake said. "Follow me," the robot said, and turned to lead them down the corridor. Over their communication system, they could hear reports from the other teams. Rick and Kathresh had reached the reactor and were working on power stabilization. Amy and the crystal beings had accessed the central computer and were downloading facility maps. Lisa and the tree beings had discovered that the facility had been researching advanced life support systems. "Captain," Amy's voice came through clearly, "I found something interesting in the facility records. This place wasn't just a research station. It was a survival training facility. What do you mean? The whole setup is artificial. The system, failures, the malfunctioning robots, even the time limit. It's all part of an advanced training simulation. Jake and Troy looked at each other. You mean this is all fake? Not fake, exactly. The dangers are real, but they're controlled dangers. This is the most sophisticated training facility in the galaxy. Rick's voice joined the conversation. That explains why the reactor problems are so easy to fix. They're designed to be solvable by a competent engineering team. And the robots are programmed to be converted from enemies to allies, Troy added, looking at their mechanical guide. Affirmative, the robot said. This unit is Model 7 training android. Primary function, adaptive threat assessment and cooperation. Evaluation. They reached the Security Control Center, where Troy quickly figured out how to reprogram the remaining robots. Instead of hunting intruders, they began helping with repairs and evacuation procedures. Lisa's team had made their own discovery. The research they were doing here was about multi-species cooperation in extreme environments. This whole facility is designed to test how different species work together under pressure. And how are we doing? Jake asked. Breaking records, Amy said. I'm looking at the historical data. Most groups that reach this phase lose 60 to 70% of their members. We haven't lost anyone. Most groups spend their time fighting each other for limited resources, Kathresh added. We spend our time expanding the available resources. Rick's voice came through with satisfaction. Reactor stabilized. Power back to 90%. All systems coming back online. With full power restored, the facility's problems disappeared. The structural damage was repaired by automated systems. Life support returned to normal levels. The security robots became helpful guides and assistants. Well, Jake said, that was easier than expected. Captain, Amy said, I'm getting a message from Instructor Zeltar. They want to talk to all of us in the main chamber. The 8 species groups gathered in the facility's central area. Zeltar appeared on the main screen, and he looked confused. Congratulations, Zeltar said. You have completed the advanced survival training in record time. However, your methods were unconventional. How so? Jake asked. The transport back to Survival Station Omega-7 was much more comfortable than the original trip. The 8 species groups sat together, sharing stories and comparing notes from their experiences. What had started as competitive survival training had turned into something like summer camp. I still cannot believe you talked the security robots into helping us, Kathresh said to Troy. On my homeworld, such machines are feared weapons of war. They're just computers with legs, Troy replied. Computers can be reasoned with if you understand their programming. Lisa was deep in conversation with the tree beings about biological adaptation strategies. Rick was showing the crystal beings how to modify their mineral structure for better heat resistance. Amy was teaching the Fluffkin about advanced communication techniques. Jake sat with Kate, watching the interactions between species that had been strangers a week ago and were now acting like old friends. This isn't normal, is it? Jake asked. Kate smiled. Define normal. Is it normal for humans? Yes, we've been cooperating with different groups and solving problems together for thousands of years. Is it normal for galactic survival training? Apparently not. When they arrived at the station, they were met by a much larger group of instructors than before. Zeltar was there, along with several other aliens that Jake didn't recognize. They all looked serious and slightly confused. Welcome back, Zeltar said. Please follow us to the debriefing chambers. The debriefing chamber was a large room with comfortable seating arranged in a circle. The humans and their fellow trainees sat on one side, while the instructors sat on the other. It felt like a very polite interrogation. "First," Zeltar began, "congratulations on completing the Advanced Survival Training Program. You have all earned full galactic citizenship and the highest survival certifications available." There was polite applause from the alien instructors. The training participants looked pleased but not particularly surprised. "However," Zeltar continued, "we need to discuss some irregularities in your performance." "Irregularities?" Jake asked. A new instructor, who looked like a floating jellyfish with tentacles, spoke up. "I am Administrator Vorthlan. In 300 years of operation, we have never seen training results like yours." "Is that a problem?" Amy asked. "That remains to be determined. Let us review some statistics." Vorthlan consulted a floating display. Phase 1. Environmental Survival. Historical survival rate, 47%. Your group's survival rate, 100%. The training participants nodded. That seemed reasonable to them. Phase 2. Resource Management. Historical completion rate, 31%. Your group's completion rate, 100%, with full restoration of a failed colony infrastructure. "The machines needed fixing," Rick said. It seemed obvious. Phase 3. Cooperative Escape. Historical survival rate, 23%. Your group's survival rate, 100%, with facility restoration and integration of hostile AI systems. "The robots just needed to understand what we were trying to do," Troy explained. Vorthlan's tentacles rippled in what might have been confusion. "Do you understand what these statistics mean?" Jake looked around at his crew and their alien friends. "It means we did better than average?" "It means you achieved impossible results," said another instructor, this one resembling a large insect. "I am Tactical Advisor Crixtan. These training scenarios are based on real survival situations that have occurred throughout galactic history. They are designed to eliminate the weak and test the absolute limits of survival capability." They seemed like reasonable challenges. "To us," Lisa said. "Reasonable?" Crixtan clicked his mandibles in disbelief. "The environmental conditions in Phase 1 have killed elite military units. The resource scarcity in Phase 2 has caused the collapse of entire colonies. The facility in Phase 3 has been abandoned by species with technology far superior to yours." Kathresh leaned forward. "Tactical Advisor, may I ask a question?" "Proceed." "What classification was given to the human homeworld in your databases?" Category 2, Garden World. Pleasant climate, low gravity, minimal environmental hazards. Kathresh's mandibles clicked in what Jake now recognized as Krillian laughter. "Instructor Zeltar, show them the footage from Phase 1. Zeltar activated a holographic display that showed scenes from their first survival test. The other instructors watched as the humans casually walked through conditions that had sent other species fleeing for emergency evacuation. "Note how they react to the electrical storm," Kathresh said. "They call it mood lighting and use it to recharge their equipment." The footage switched to Phase 2, showing Rick teaching other species how to repair alien technology while joking about the interesting engineering challenges. "And here," Kathresh continued, "they treat resource scarcity as an infrastructure improvement project." The final footage showed the humans talking security robots into becoming helpful assistants while describing the process as basic negotiation. The room was very quiet when the footage ended. Administrator Vorthalan's tentacles were moving rapidly. This does not match the behavioral profile for a Category 2 Garden World species. No, Kathresh agreed. This matches the behavioral profile for a species from a Class 12 Deathworld. That's impossible, Crixtan said. Class 12 Deathworlds cannot support intelligent life. The environmental hazards alone would prevent the development of complex civilizations. Unless, Zeltar said slowly, the environmental hazards were what drove the development of the civilization. Jake was getting confused. Excuse me, but what exactly is a Class 12 Deathworld? Vorthlan consulted his database. A planet with extreme weather patterns, dangerous predators, deadly diseases, frequent natural disasters, high radiation levels, toxic atmospheric components, and unstable geological activity. No known intelligent species has ever evolved on such a world. That sounds like Earth, Amy said. Earth is classified as Category 2, Crixtan insisted. Who did the classification survey? Lisa asked. Zeltar checked his records. Automated Survey Probe 7743 Delta, standard passive observation, over a period of 6 local months. 6 months, Jake asked. You classified our entire planet based on 6 months of observation? Standard procedure for low-priority worlds, Vorthlan said defensively. Rick laughed. 6 months? Depending on when you observed, you might have missed earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, ice storms, heat waves, droughts, floods, forest fires, and blizzards. Don't forget the poisonous animals, Troy added, and the diseases, and the plants that can kill you. And the fact that our primary food sources are other predators, Kate said. The instructors were staring at them now. You eat other predators? Crixton asked weakly. Sure, Jake said. Cattle, pigs, chickens, fish. Most of our protein comes from animals. Your cattle are predators? Well, no, cattle are herbivores, but they're big and have horns and can kill you if you're not careful. Same with pigs. They're omnivores and can be pretty aggressive. And you keep these dangerous creatures as food sources? We domesticated them thousands of years ago, Lisa explained. Selective breeding, genetic modification through agriculture, cooperative biological management. Vorthalan's tentacles had stopped moving entirely. You domesticated hostile wildlife for food production. Among other things, Amy said. We also domesticated wolves into dogs for companionship and assistance, horses for transportation, various plants for medicine and materials. You turned apex predators into companions? Dogs are great, Troy said. Loyal, intelligent, excellent for security and emotional support. Administrator Vorthlan made a sound that the translation system couldn't process. We need to conduct an immediate reclassification survey of Earth. There might be a problem with that, Zeltar said, checking his communications. I've been receiving reports from our survey department. Earth has been busy since we made contact. Busy how? Jake asked. Apparently, your species has been reverse engineering our communication technology. They've built 17 deep space transmitters and have been attempting to contact every known civilization in the galaxy. That sounds like Earth, Amy said proudly. They've also launched 43 exploration ships toward various star systems, including several that we consider too dangerous for our own vessels to approach. Exploration is what we do, Lisa said. And, Zeltar continued, they've submitted formal applications to join 16 different galactic organizations, along with detailed proposals for improved safety protocols, infrastructure development, and disaster response procedures. Jake grinned. Sounds like they're making a good impression. They're terrifying the entire galactic community, Crixtan said. 3 different civilizations have requested military protection in case Earth decides to expand aggressively. We're not aggressive, Jake protested. We're just enthusiastic. You turned predators into pets, Vorthalon said. You treat natural disasters as recreational activities, Crixtan added. You solve survival crises by improving the infrastructure, Zeltar said. And you do all of this while being cheerful and helpful, Kathresh said. It is the most terrifying combination of traits imaginable. The room fell silent again. Jake looked around at his crew and their alien friends. So, Jake said finally, are we in trouble? Dr. Lisa Park was having the best day of her scientific career. She sat in the research library of Survival Station Omega-7, surrounded by databases containing information about thousands of different worlds and species. As a xenobiologist, this was like being given access to every library in the universe. Amy, come look at this, Lisa called out. Amy looked up from her own research station, where she had been studying galactic communication protocols. What did you find? I've been going through the planetary classification system, trying to understand how they categorize different types of worlds. Look at these examples. Amy walked over and looked at Lisa's display screen. It showed a list of planets with their classifications and brief descriptions. Category 1. Paradise World, Lisa read. Perfect climate, no predators, abundant resources, no natural disasters, only 3 known examples in the galaxy. That sounds nice, Amy said. Category 2. Garden World, Lisa continued. Stable climate, minimal predators, adequate resources, rare natural disasters. Common type, suitable for most species. That's what they classified Earth as. Right. Now look at this. Category 8. Deathworld. Extreme weather, dangerous predators, frequent natural disasters, hostile environment. Considered barely habitable. Amy frowned. That sounds more like Earth than Category 2. It gets worse. Category 12. Deathworld. Constant environmental threats, apex predators, deadly atmospheric conditions, frequent cataclysmic events. Theoretically, unsurvivable for intelligent life. Lisa, Amy said slowly, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? Before Lisa could answer, Rick Santos walked into the library. He looked excited and slightly confused. Ladies, you need to see what I found in the engineering databases, Rick said. I've been looking at the technical specifications for survival equipment. What kind of specifications? Lisa asked. Rick activated a wall display. Standard environmental suits for Category 2 worlds. Look at the protection ratings. The display showed a sleek, lightweight suit with minimal armor. The specifications listed protection against light rain, mild temperature variations, and small, non-aggressive wildlife. That's it? Amy asked. That's their idea of survival gear? For Category 2 worlds, yes. Now look at this. Rick switched to a different image. Standard environmental suits for Category 8 worlds. This suit looked like military armor. Heavy, plating, sealed life support systems, and built-in weapons. The specifications listed protection against acid rain, extreme temperatures, radiation, and large predatory creatures. That looks like what the other species wore to our first exercise, Amy observed. Exactly. They came dressed for a category. 8 Deathworld survival test. We came dressed for a camping trip. Lisa was pulling up more data. Rick, what's the average lifespan for intelligent species from different world categories? Rick consulted his engineering database. Category 1, Paradise Worlds. Average lifespan, 400 to 600 standard years. Category 2, Garden Worlds. 200 to 300 years. Category 8, Death Worlds, 80 to 120 years. What's the human average lifespan? Amy asked. About 80 years, Lisa said, which matches Category 8 Death World species. The three humans looked at each other. A picture was starting to form. And it wasn't the picture they had been given about Earth. Troy Bennett and Kate Williams entered the library, both carrying data tablets and looking concerned. "We need to talk," Troy said. "I've been going through the military databases, and Kate's been looking at medical records." "What did you find?" Lisa asked. Kate sat down heavily. "I've been comparing human physiology to other galactic species. We're not normal." "How not normal?" Rick asked. "Our bone density is 40% higher than average. Our muscle efficiency is off. The charts. Our healing rate is 3 times faster than typical for our size category." Troy nodded grimly. "And our reaction times are comparable to species that evolved specifically for combat. Our situational awareness scores match military-trained individuals from warrior species." "That's not all," Kate continued. "Our immune systems are incredibly robust. We can survive exposure to pathogens that would kill most galactic species within hours." "And our diet," Troy added. "Most intelligent species are herbivores or omnivores with very specific dietary requirements. We can eat almost anything organic and extract nutrition from it." Lisa was typing rapidly at her research station. "I'm cross-referencing human characteristics with the planetary classification system." Data flowed across her screen. Atmospheric tolerance, temperature range, pressure adaptation, radiation resistance, toxin immunity. "Oh my," Lisa said quietly. "What?" Amy asked. "According to this classification system, humans show all the characteristics of a species that evolved on a Class 12 death world." The library was very quiet for a moment. "But the survey classified Earth as Category 2, Rick said. Lisa pulled up the original survey data. Automated survey probe 7743 Delta. Observational period, 6 local months. Location, North American continent, temperate zone, during a period of unusual climatic stability." "Unusual climatic stability?" Kate asked. "The probe happened to observe Earth during one of the calmest 6-month periods in recent geological history. No major storms, no volcanic activity, no significant earthquakes, no disease outbreaks." Amy was reading over Lisa's shoulder. "It also observed during late spring and early summer in a temperate zone. The probe completely missed winter, hurricane season, tornado season, and fire season. And it only observed one continent," Troy added. "It missed the monsoons in Asia, the cyclones in Australia, the volcanic activity in the Pacific Ring of Fire, and the seasonal flooding in Africa." Rick laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "So they classified our entire planet based on 6 months of nice weather in one of the safest places on Earth during one of the calmest periods in recent history." "It gets worse," Lisa said, pulling up more data. "The probe's biological sensors detected cattle, sheep, and horses. So, it classified them as large domesticated herbivores and assumed they were representative of local wildlife." Kate shook her head. The probe missed bears, wolves, tigers, sharks, venomous snakes, poisonous spiders, and about 1,000,000 other things that can kill you. It also missed bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi, Lisa added, plus toxic plants, dangerous weather, patterns, and geological instability. Amy was doing calculations on her tablet. Lisa, what would Earth's classification be if the survey had been done properly? Lisa fed the correct data into the classification system. She stared at the result for a long moment. Class 15. Deathworld, she said quietly. Class 15? Rick asked. I thought 12 was the highest category. Apparently not. Class 15 is described as unsurvivable by any known form of intelligent life. Environmental conditions exceed maximum tolerance for organized civilization. Recommend complete avoidance. The 6 humans sat in the library absorbing this information. So, Troy said, we're from a planet so dangerous that the galactic community didn't think intelligent life could exist there. And when we showed up for basic safety training, Kate added, they gave us the most difficult survival course in the galaxy because they thought we were delicate creatures from a peaceful world. And we accidentally proved that we're actually from a nightmare world that makes their worst training scenarios look like vacation resorts, Amy concluded. Lisa was still staring at her data. There's more. I'm looking at the survival characteristics for Class 15 Deathworld species. Theoretical projections only, since no such species has ever been observed. What kind of characteristics? Rick asked. Extreme adaptability, ability to cooperate under stress, advanced problem-solving skills, rapid technology development, strong social bonding across genetic lines. That sounds like humans, Amy said, highly aggressive when threatened, but capable of forming alliances with other species, natural tendency to improve rather than abandon hostile environments. Definitely sounds like humans, Troy said. And this is the interesting part, Lisa continued. The theoretical analysis suggests that Class 15 Deathworld species would be the ideal candidates for galactic emergency response, hostile environment, exploration, and first contact with unknown civilizations. Kate smiled. Because we're already used to dealing with impossible situations. The problem is, Lisa said, everyone is going to be terrified of us once they realize what we actually are. Rick stood up and stretched. Maybe that's not entirely a bad thing. Respect through strength isn't the worst foundation for diplomacy. Amy was already thinking ahead. We need to tell the others, and we need to figure out how to break this news to the galactic community. Troy nodded. And we need to make sure Earth knows what they're dealing with out here. If other species are going to be scared of us, we need to be prepared for that. Lisa saved her research and stood up. First, let's go find Instructor Zeltar. I think he deserves to know the truth about what they accidentally invited to their survival training. How do you think he'll react? Kate asked. Probably the same way we'd react if we found out we'd accidentally invited Godzilla to a summer camp, Amy said. As they walked out of the library, Rick had one more thought. You know what the really funny part is? What? Lisa asked. We're